one of the world's most widely read journalists takes on the biggest story of our times.
I'm still asking the question, what was 9/11 all about?
Thomas L. Friedman, New York Times foreign affairs columnist, three-time winner of the Pulitzer Prize.
You don't think Osama bin Laden did it?
Most Muslims, they think America is against Islam.
At a time of war, a search for answers.
فإلى متى يبقى الخوف والقتل والدمار فكرا علينا ويبقى الأمن والاستقرار والسرور فكرا عليكم؟ هذه قسمة ضيقة. لقد آن الأوان لنستوي في البضاعة. فها هي الأمة الإسلامية ترميكم بفلذات أكبادها. فكما تقتلون تقتلون وكما تقصفون تقصفون وابشروا بما يسوءكم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.
What is it that is triggering such intense anger at America? One of the people who explained it to me best was a young Muslim political leader in Belgium, Diab Abu Jaja.
Kind of wanted to focus on the fact that America got a punch in the nose. And I think if we're honest with ourselves, most of the Muslims all over the world also felt that way. America got hit in the face, and that cannot be bad.
Explain that to me. How widespread did you sense was the, what I would call passive support for 9/11 as an act of punching America in the nose? And where did that passive support come from?
I don't want to make an intellectual analysis of that. I'll give it very simply. America was kicking our butts for 50 years, and really badly, supporting the bullies in the region, whether it's Israel or our own regimes, giving us not only a bleeding nose, but breaking a lot of our necks. Killing civilians by bombing Iraq and saying, it's the mistake, it's the fault of Saddam, it's collateral damage, it's regrettable, but acceptable. In a way, America educated us like that. Okay, so maybe civilians that got killed in the United States are the fault of Bush, and it's regrettable, but acceptable. So actually we are good students of the United States. We learned the American mentality. You know, we have to hit back. We don't like to kill civilians, but you know, collateral damage. I'm against that logic. I'm against it when the United States executes it. I'm against it also when my own people execute it. But I cannot be blind in seeing that it's America that educated us.
There is no denying that Arab anger at American support for Israel and American support for Arab dictators is one of the rivers of rage that caused 9/11. But this anger is not the only emotion that fed 9/11. There were two other rivers of rage. There is the anger and frustration so many Muslims feel because their civilization, once first in the world, has fallen so far behind. And there is also anger at their own regimes, whose corruption and repression have kept them powerless and voiceless.
One of the things I'm still studying, still asking the question is, what was 9/11 all about? You know, what motivated these young men to do what they did on that day? So I'd be interested in your answer to that question.
Well, I think, seriously, 9/11 is all about, you see the blood of Arab people being spilt as if we're sheep. And you think, you know, with these people sitting in these big buildings and ruling the world, think that their blood is expensive and that we're just animals. Palestinian blood isn't any cheaper than any other kind of blood. Whereas I've heard of an Arab empire, and I've never really heard of a Jewish empire, and America's only 300 years old. So how is the Arab world backward, and how is our blood cheap? You know, in what sense?
The only different thing about the 11th September is that it occurred in America. The 11th of September is taking place daily in Palestine and daily before in Lebanon and different countries of the Arab world. But the thing is, I think everyone is against the killing of the innocent. But why was the world so much astonished when it happened in the States? The only special thing about it was not expected to happen in the States. It will not be expected to happen in Britain or any of the powerful countries.
What happened on September 11th, I don't agree with it. but I think this was the last way they could have gotten their point across. They were forced to go to an extreme. And not that I support loss of innocent lives, but it had to be done in a way.
But you think they were trying to make a point, and what do you think it was?
That America should try not to boss around the whole world.
These young people in Qatar spoke for a lot of young Arabs. Their feelings toward us are very complicated. They identify with America at times, but also identify with those who want to punch America in the
world
face.
have been extremely angry at what Israel has done to the Palestinians, and they're equally angry at what they see as American acquiescence in this process. So the American link to Israel is extremely important.
Really touches
the
that.
second one is the question of double standards.
Yeah.
That the United States applies the double standard, a hypocritical policy, and applies one standard here and one standard here. And that is the single most important thing I think that the U.S. can do. And you would have people jumping over you to be your friends.
But unfortunately, for now, so many Arabs view America as the enemy.
But I want to go back to the point you raised about why people maybe hate you here or something like that. I don't, by the way.
I talked with Mohammed Kamal, a Cairo University professor, and some of his students.
People associate you with America.
Kamal is an expert on the United States, a controversial topic today in the Arab world.
I was teaching a course on foreign policy in general, but most of the cases I used were related to the U.S. And I found out that some students, you know, it started first as, you know, rumors, and then someone stood up and told me, you have been brainwashed by America.
One of your students?
One of my students in class. So it started by, you know, being brainwashed by America. You're a CIA agent, you're a, you know, dual citizen, and so on. So people here are very suspicious of the U.S.
I mean, don't you think it's rather sad that Islam, Middle East, or terrorism, that those three words are always linked in one way or another? That's probably, I know that this is not Thomas Friedman saying, this is the way it is.
Young Arabs and Muslims, if you ask them where is all this free-floating anger coming from, they'll tell you Israel, what it does, and the United States, what it does in support of Israel. But to believe that was the only thing animating these young men is to believe that they care more about what's going on in a third country than they care about what's going on in their own country. Saddam Hussein, Libya's Gaddafi, Syria's Assad. For decades, dictators like these have been oppressing their people. 15 of the hijackers came from Saudi Arabia and the other 4 from other Arab countries. But why would anger at their own governments cause young Muslims to hit America? Because they held America responsible for keeping their leaders in power.